The Power Factor Show with Steve and Rick. Episode 29.
Gun Rights Radio Network has the best pro-Second Amendment, pro-gun rights podcast available on the net. The podcasts are absolutely free when subscribing using iTunes or Zune Marketplace. Or if you want, you can just listen from the website. Make sure you visit gunrightsradio.com to subscribe. Podcasting freedom, one episode at a time.
Brought to you by Safariland.
Okay, welcome to Power Factor. I'm Steve.
I'm Rick.
Still. And today we're going to do the beginning of our double tap match that we shot recently down in Wichita Falls, Texas.
But before we get to that, we want to thank our first sponsor to the Power Factor show, Safariland. We're very happy to have them on board. We were kind of concerned about, I was really kind of concerned when we started talking about sponsors not wanting to turn the show into an infomercial or, lose kind of the focus of presenting stuff that we use already.
Right.
Any products that we've plugged on the show, it's not because they gave us a free sample. It's because we're already using it and satisfied that it's the best that we've got.
My belt system is a Safariland belt system. My mag pouches for single stack are all Safariland mag pouches. So it's stuff we've already been using. But I'm actually really kind of excited about this. I'm going to test out one of the new Safariland. I think it's the 013, I believe the number is model number. Holster for my STI, so my holster is rather old, and I'm really looking forward to testing this thing out. And I was hoping that I'd be able to test it out at double tap, but unfortunately it didn't work out. So want to thank Bobby McGee with Safariland for hooking us up. Bobby's actually was originally from this area up here. We shot with Bobby actually for quite a bit, and he's now working with Safariland. So Bobby is very much into competition shooting and knows his stuff down there. So definitely, if you're looking for gear, Safariland stuff, contact him and talk to Bobby, and he'll definitely set you in the right direction.
Yeah, and we'll be doing probably some kind of ongoing product reviews. Like Steve, I'm going to start using a Safariland rig for IDPA competition probably the rest of the summer. I'll be shooting my Browning High Power with the complete Safariland rig, and I've never actually had a holster specifically for the gun. I've been using an old carry style 1911 holster, so this is actually my first high power holster, so it's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to work out really well. So we will probably be over the summer doing kind of multiple checking in again on how we like the rigs and stuff. So we'll do some review on that, explanations of how the rigs are set up. Lots of different locking systems are on the market for attaching pouches and stuff, and so we'll do a little analysis of that as well as just kind of the functional analysis and how we like it.
Yeah, they do have a very innovative locking system now in the holster and the belt system, which really is pretty cool. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I'm going to actually test my holster out for the first time at the Northwest Challenge. It's coming up here in a couple of weeks, which is a 2-day match, level 2 match. So
I'm going to try mine out on Saturday at a local IDPA match.
Cool,
so
good.
We'll see how that goes.
Hi folks, Bob Main from the Handgun World Show. The reason I carry a gun is because I can't carry a cop. Just wanted to make a quick video here and let you know that I am teaming up with these guys here at the Power Factor Show. And as most of you know, just recently I put out an audio podcast recapping the events at the Double Tap Championship. Well, there's a lot more. And also there's some more information from close range gunfighting that I did a few weeks ago. So I've got more information from John Payne from Suarez International, from Steve and Rick here at the Power Factor Show on my Shooters Club podcast. Now, as you know, this is a podcast that I've developed to help raise money for my show, for these guys here at the Power Factor Show, and for the Gun Rights Radio Network. Mark Vanderberg does such a great job with the Gun Rights Radio Network and bringing all of us podcasters together and everything. I want to support him, and I want to support his efforts. So your investment gives you a couple of hours of really good information. It will make you a better shooter. It will make you a lot better at defending yourself with your handgun. You'll get some good ideas. You'll get some dry fire practice ideas. You'll get some competition ideas, some mindset ideas for concealed carry, and a whole lot more. So the upcoming Shooters Club podcast features me. It features Steve and Rick from the Power Factor Show, a little bit from Suarez International's John Payne and close range gunfighting, and a few more things that I'm still working on that I'll be putting in there. So all you have to do is go to handgunworld.com, click the Shooters Club podcast link, and you'll see that it's version 3. It's probably going to come out around the 29th of June. And you're also going to get 1 ticket into the drawing. Now, we've got 5 winners set up so far. And what I'm doing is I'm giving away 3 Handgun World Show t-shirts. I'm also giving away a box of carry ammo, your choice, your caliber, your ammo. You just let us know. If you're the winner, let us know what you want to stoke your gun with, and we'll get you a box of that ammo. And then the grand prize is a $100 gift certificate to Cabela's. So, folks, there's a great chance for you to win something and get a couple of hours of really good information, only for $25. Folks, $25 is not much of an investment when you're talking about tips that can help you shoot better and also help you save your life. So, once again, thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed the most recent episode with me and Steve and Rick talking to you from the range at the Double Tap Championship. Once again, the website is handgunworld.com, and just click the Shooters Club podcast link, and it'll give you instructions so you can make your investment and get your free ticket into the raffle drawing. Folks, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching this. I'm Bob Main from the Handgun World Show. The reason I carry a gun is because I can't carry a cop. Thanks.
For this episode, I am Blondie, and you're Tuco, because this is the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Double Tap match that we recently shot. So normally we would insert the music from the good, the bad, and the ugly here, but since we can't legally do that probably because of copyright stuff, you all go home and get your MP3s out. And
well, if we did it in the guise of a movie review, I think we could play it. We could play a segment of the movie as long as we talked about the movie. So,
but we're not here to talk
about the insightful.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's not then.
Yeah.
Just imagine it's playing in the background.
Right. Yeah.
Just kind of stirring in the background. Okay.
So today we're really going to talk about the overall match, our experience with the match, what we liked, what went well, what went bad. Just kind of a synopsis or whatever of the whole entire match. So
yeah. So I think a logical place to start is we arrive in town, get our cars, go to the hotel, and we were traveling as a group of 4, Steve with his wife, and myself with our mutual friend Matt. And although we're friends, we're not that friendly. And when we opened the door to our room and find a single queen bed in there, the weekend was off to a little bit unusual start. And there was some bicycle race or dog show or something in town, so the hotel was absolutely full.
Booked. Yeah.
And even though they told us they could find us a room that had a king bed, that was the best they could do. And we said, okay, if that's the best you can do. They actually moved us into another room that had exactly the same queen bed in it.
Right.
So I got my first night's sleep on a recliner. Which wasn't so bad, really. I mean, I've slept in some unusual places, and so at a nice recliner with a comfy pillow, it wasn't too bad, and I generally don't sleep well when I'm on the road anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But it was just kind of it's one of those deals where sometimes you get this sense that we're not off to a very good start.
And we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, that opening the door to the hotel room was kind of that moment. So, but we paid a little extra on our car rental to get a van. And I think we did that when we went on the Nationals.
Well, actually, you should explain, on the second night, though, they did get you an air bed.
They did.
Yeah,
they brought me an air bed with a pump, and so it was very nice of them, and, that did work out all right.
Yeah.
And so,
but, okay, so on to the van.
So we got a van. It was a small dollar upgrade, but there were going to be 3 of us traveling to and from the range, each of us with a range bag and a big cooler, and it was nice to have the space. It was really nice to have the space. And speaking of the
cooler, the wise thing that we did as soon as we hit town is we went to Walmart and we ended up buying recliner chairs basically that we could sit in. We bought a cooler, a good plastic cooler, and a bunch of ice. pile of water, a lot of liquids. I think that was really a wise investment. We ended up giving it all to Bob Main when we left town rather than throwing it in the dumpster, which is what we would have done.
Yeah, but the chairs are $10. The cooler was
no major
10
loss.
or $15.
Yeah.
And so it's, it was nice to be able to drag the cooler around. Because I've gone to matches where I kept all the water in the car, other than the one bottle that I had at my range bag.
Right.
And we were drinking so much water, it would have been totally impractical to do that. So having the cooler with us on the range was extremely important.
Between the three of us, I think we went through 6 gallons of liquid on the first day.
Something like that.
So
I mean, I
roughly 2 gallons
calculated
per person.
that on Saturday, the day that we were there, shot 8 stages and had lunch, I drank 240 ounces of water, which, according to somebody after I got home and said, I was a little bit woozy and
you think you actually liquefied yourself?
Well, somebody sent me like a calculator, like how much water you should drink, and it's your weight divided by the temperature plus a conversion factor.
Square root, first derivative.
Yeah, and according to that,
it
said I should have consumed like 130 ounces.
So you may
I almost doubled that.
Yeah.
But I never felt dehydrated. I mean, I was not sweating.
Not.
Right, exactly. And so I don't really know. I mean, the heat did get to me, but it wasn't like I was sweating profusely and suffering. But just after having been out in the 100-degree heat, what turned into 100-degree heat in the afternoon, after having been out in it for like 5 hours, it really took a toll on me. So.
But I will say, in terms of one of the smartest things we did, though, was getting those chairs and that cooler. I mean, that really just helped that you at least have a place to go sit down in the shade. Yeah. We had our cold water with us all the time, so that worked out well.
It was nice.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Okay, so after the first day, generally speaking, at least from my perspective, everything went well. From your perspective, not so well.
Yeah, it was like a tale of 2 matches.
Yeah.
Kind of. When we got there Saturday morning, I think the match started, was it 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
With a bang, literally. They shot fireworks off.
Fireworks off. It was probably, 75 degrees out. Fairly, very comfortable.
Yeah.
We shot 4 stages, then broke for lunch. And we sat in the car with the air conditioning on for at least a half an hour, I think. So you would think that we would have been able to start fairly fresh in the afternoon, but it was all an illusion.
It got very warm.
Yeah, and in the morning, this is an example, not to just draw on this, kind of subjective memory of, I didn't feel very well. In the 4 stages we shot in the morning, I didn't even have a delta. And in the afternoon, the 4 stages we shot, I had 3 mics, and it was pretty obvious that I just was not doing very well, and especially on the next to the last stage we shot, I was just it's a mode that I've been in before, where I would have almost rather have had somebody tell me, "I'm sorry, you have to go home. The match for you is over." Not necessarily being DQ'd, but just the idea that I was pretty miserable, and it's hard. You can't shoot well when you're under those conditions. And so the afternoon was just kind of like survival and getting through those 4 stages, knowing that I was still going to be able to shoot for the next day.
And for the people down there who are used to the temperature and everything like that, it's probably not as big of a deal for them as it is for us. I mean, we literally came out of 50-degree weather and to go into 100-degree weather for roughly 8 hours, except for the hour or whatever it was that we were in the car in air conditioning.
Yeah.
But it was more of a shock for us than it probably was for them. But so you had a lot of gun trouble problems, some really weird, bizarre failures with your rounds popping out of your magazines.
It was very unusual.
Yeah.
I had a problem at a match that I shot. It was about 5 weeks ago on a stage where a live round stovepiped in the ejection port. And I don't think I've ever even witnessed that particular malfunction before. I'm going blam, 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 and I see a cartridge in front of the sight. And I cleared it, shot the rest of the match, which would have been about over 200 rounds, didn't have a problem. Shot the single stack match that we had locally, which was another 100 and some odd rounds, didn't have a problem. But on the first stage down in Wichita Falls, on a reload, as I went to put the mag into the gun, the top round dislodged from the magazine and shot up inside the frame. So I'm trying to cram a full magazine into the gun with a live round rattling around in there between the slide and the magazine. And so it will go within about, like a 3/4 of an inch of being loaded, but then hitting the mag release would not drop it out. So now I've got the gun in this hand and a magazine in this hand, kind of going like this, you know. So I get the mag out, the round dribbles out, reload the gun, finish the stage, and then it happened again on the next stage. So now this is two of the most bizarre malfunctions I've ever seen on back-to-back stages, and I've seen it happen to somebody before, 10 or 12 years ago, but to have it happen on back-to-back stages, I was just kind of like going, okay, first the bed, now the mag, you know, and at the time I wasn't really sure what the problem was, and I think by the end of the day Sunday I discovered what it was, but not before it happened yet again, and I had a couple other issues. So in that sense, the mechanical side kind of let me down.
It's interesting you should mention about bizarre situations that you haven't seen happen before, because when we get a little bit further into it, I had a very similar event happen on the second day. But so you had mentioned though that I think you finally felt you identified the magazine that had caused the problem, and I think you mentioned that you were going to send all your mags off to Checkmate to have them gauged. Have you heard anything back from them yet?
I haven't heard back from them yet.
Okay.
I remembered, it was another thing, I think one of the reasons that I didn't identify it sooner is because I really wasn't thinking straight. You know, I'm sitting there going, okay, Rick, the reason that you number your magazines and you shoot them in number order is so that when you have a malfunction, you know which mag it was that caused it.
Right.
And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, let's see. In each case, it was kind of towards the end of a stage. So it must have been, and these are a lot of the stages were 24 rounds, 30 rounds. So I'm thinking if it's towards the end of the stage, it's got to be probably magazine number 3, 4, maybe magazine number 5. And I thought, well, I remember back at the match I shot 3 weeks ago, I decided that the mag that caused the problem, or the mag that was in the gun when I had this weird stovepipe, was magazine number 4.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, okay, well, if that was number 4, and it was kind of towards the end of I'm kind of mimicking how I was looking at the time, then it was probably magazine number 4 this time too. So I took magazine number 4 and made that my Barney mag, and then took the other Barney mag and stuck it in the belt where number 4 belongs, and I didn't have another problem. So I suspect it was magazine number 4. But like Steve said, I sent them all back to Checkmate. They're going to gauge them, see if the I couldn't, by looking at them, I'm looking to see if the round is at a different angle, sitting higher or lower in the mag tube. Just looking at them, they looked like they were fine, but I'm going to wait till I hear back and see if there was actually a problem.
Now, if you run all your mags in sequence, 1 through 6 or whatever it is that you have, aren't you kind of to a certain degree running the risk of running magazines 1 and 2 more often than you're running number 6? Do you ever reverse your sequence?
I will switch the base pads.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. I make magazine number 6 number 1 so that the springs are kind of wearing evenly. And so
for any who are thinking about doing the same thing Rick's doing, take that little note into consideration so you're not running magazine number 1 over and over and over.
And I use the same gun for IDPA, so only mags number 1, 2, and 3 ever get any use in an IDPA match. So I'm getting a lot more mileage on 1, 2, and 3 certainly than 4, 5, and 6. So if I have an issue, it'll probably be like if a spring wears out or something, it'll probably be first in mag number 1 because it gets used on every stage in every match, and then mag number 6 rarely gets used. So I'll occasionally just rotate the numbered base pads to kind of even the wear on the mags.
So generally speaking, my first day went really well. Of the 8 stages that we shot, I didn't have any issues to speak of in any of them. I think I started out in the first stage with a couple Ds, and I think that's just kind of like the first stage. You kind of go into woohoo, and then you don't really think about the sights and all that fun stuff. And then it's like, okay, I got to use the sights a little bit more than what I was doing here, and settle down. They're pointless. They're overrated. Yeah. But at any rate, so settled down the second stage, third stage, fourth stage. Took a break at lunch. Came back. Shot the rest of the stages. I think the only problem I could really speak of during the first day, which is actually kind of interesting, but I ended up twisting my ankle on one of the stages, which, for what it's worth, actually, we're going to do a later episodes here on stage breakdowns. So you're going to see the stages, how we shot them, how we analyzed them, tips, techniques, stuff like that throughout the whole entire match. So that'll probably end up being maybe 3 or so episodes altogether of all 12 stages. But at any rate, so one of the stages I ended up twisting my ankle late in the day, which is interesting because it's still causing pain, so I don't know exactly what that means. But I'd mentioned before that I carry my little medical kit with me in my range bag. The problem is that I pulled these pills out of the box, and I put them in my range bag, and I'm looking at them, and it's like, okay, these aren't labeled what they are, and I don't recognize them. And I see acetaminophen and something else, and the something else, I mean, I'm not a chemist or, a pharmacist, I don't know what it is, so I'm going, these are either painkillers or cold pills. And I don't really need to be doped up right now. So I just elected not to take them, but one of the other guys in our squad had Advil or something like that. There's a plug for Advil.
We use it and recommend it.
Well, we're not using Excedrin or Tylenol.
Right.
But at any rate, so that seemed to help. But for whatever reason, whatever I've done is still causing some pain in my ankle. So if you're a doctor, and if I'm still experiencing pain 3 weeks after, did I fracture my ankle or did I sprain my ankle? You can write in and let me know what I did. But
well, and I hurt my arm, strangely enough, setting up a match like 2 weeks before we went down there. I tried to pick up this table, and usually when you go to pick something up, you kind of just give it a little test lift to see, oh yeah, I can lift that.
Yeah.
And then when I went to actually lift it, I heard and felt
something pops.
Well, I wouldn't describe it as pop. It kind of went like something was moving around inside my arm, and it doesn't. I don't notice like a loss of range of motion. It doesn't really hurt. It's just kind of like a little nagging ache. And my wife's going, well, you probably, stretched a ligament or something. And it'll take a while. And I'm going, well, a while? It's been, like a month. And
I can just hear the people who are 20 right now yelling at their screen. It's because you guys are old.
Yeah. So anyway, so the arm is still, only about 90%. So if I report back after the next match, that I had problems with the arm.
We're 70.
It's
I had to take my walker up to the match today.
Yeah. So anyway,
so first day, pretty much. Then yes, you had a little incident apparently.
Now, was it the time I should have been DQ'd?
No.
When
Matt said you went.
Oh, I had a freak out?
Yeah, your freak out.
Yeah, that was the ultimate result of the heat. I was, just feeling a little out of sorts, and I felt much better after I went back to the room, took a shower, kind of just relaxed in the cool of the air-conditioned room. But yeah, on the drive back from the range, in the first half hour I was back at the hotel, it was pretty weird. And I, of course, felt better later. But yeah, at the time it was kind of unusual.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Matt thought I should, either die or shut up or something. But anyway, we all survived that.
Then we went out for dinner with Bob and had some drinks and not a lot, and then that was it for that day. So second day, they had predicted the weather was going to be warmer than the first day. I think the first day was 100 or so, give or take. The second day ended up topping out. We saw 104
on the onboard thermometer.
Yeah, in the vehicle.
In our Dodge Caravan, which we use and recommend. Automatic doors and everything. It's very cool.
That was nice.
It was nice.
But at any rate, the second day couldn't have been, at least in my case, worse than the first day. Unfortunately, we had 4 stages left to go. Mm-hmm. And my gun quit running on the very first stage. Now, you had mentioned before about not seeing a problem and, bizarre problems and things of that nature. Yeah. And you'll eventually see it on our stage analysis breakdown videos. But I ended up having what appeared to be a very, 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 very...
That's with a V.
Yeah.
Not
light primer strike. But the strange thing was I dropped the hammer, nothing happened, racked it, nothing happened, racked it, nothing happened, racked it.
Rounds were racking out.
The rounds were coming out.
Nothing. Nothing. Was
right, sorry. I mean, click, 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 nothing. I mean, it wasn't going bang. And it happened for about 4 or 5 rounds, and then it started running again, and then it stopped again. And it just ended up burning time on each stage that it failed on. After it did it in the first stage, some people, it was funny, one of the guys in our squad and apparently one of the ROs swore that my hammer wasn't dropping. Yet, on the other hand, I was able to actually find some rounds that I had racked out of the gun, and they had a very light tick on the primer. And also based on the way that I remember what was happening, I remember if the hammer wasn't falling, I probably would be thinking the thumb safety's on, and I'd be really pressing on it, trying to make something happen.
Right.
And that certainly wasn't it. And as I was racking the slide, the fact that the hammer would have been back would have made it that much easier to rack. Right. So that would have probably clued me that something was going on, but none of that was happening. It just felt like, click, click, click. So I went down to the safety area and basically did a field strip in the gun, thinking that maybe there's some crap in the firing pin channel, or maybe the firing pin spring had gucked up or whatever, and took that all out and looked at it. Everything looked okay. Shot the next stage. The next stage actually went okay, but while I'm shooting the stage, I'm kind of thinking, is it going to happen again? Is it going to happen again? Well, it didn't happen, so I'm thinking, okay, that's good. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe it's behind me, maybe it was just some crap or whatever, because it was kind of dusty down there, and we didn't put our...
Kind of dusty.
Yeah.
I did not put my shower cap on.
No, we did not put our shower caps on. After
but it was dusty.
Yeah. So I was like, well, maybe it was some crud or whatever, but after they shot and one other thing I did is that after I went down and detail stripped it, I went over to the chrono bay, took an entire magazine, asked for permission to go ahead and shoot, which they gave me, went through an entire magazine, worked fine. I thought, okay, it must just be an aberration, no big deal, hopefully. Shot the next stage, no problem. Shot the next stage, failed again. And when it failed again the exact same way, I'm thinking, okay, this is not, not normal. This is not a piece of dust or whatever.
Right, it wouldn't just fix itself and then break it.
Right. This is more serious than that. So at that point, I ended up going down to the safety area again and did a complete detail strip on the gun. I mean, I had every single part out of that gun. I even took the mainspring housing apart and
that'll be key later. Remember that the mainspring housing.
Yeah. And looked at the mainspring housing cap pin. Is that what it's called?
The top
like
pin
where the strut goes into
the cap in, right?
Right.
A little
pin that thing
fits over the top of the cap.
Right.
Yeah.
And noticed there was a little bit of a flange on it, and it really didn't occur to me at the time what that really meant. And I thought, well, maybe there's a burr on that or something like that. So I kind of tried to file the burr that was on that cap pin, and again made sure that everything appeared to be working okay. And again, I thought I saw some dust in the mainspring housing cap thing there, and it felt a little bit sticky, but I didn't really make too much of it. Oh, by the way, there was a big, huge snake that was that was in a hole about 3 or 4 feet away from me in the safety area while I was doing all this, watching me. It was funny because every single person in Texas, I think, wanted to shoot that snake that came by. It's like, oh, let's shoot the snake!
I thought it was pretty cool.
I thought it was too. I mean, it was no big deal to me, and apparently they had some theory that if it has a round eye, it's not poisonous, so I don't know if that's true or not. But
we
whatever.
were at a match, too, where there were, like, prairie dogs living in the berm.
I remember that,
Was that in Reno, or where was that?
Or Idaho?
Yeah, there's just all these gopher holes in the berm, and they were scurrying around and stuff, and it's pretty weird, so... I prefer not to have animals on the stage, and the snake at least was nice enough to be over by the safety area.
Right. Took the gun apart, couldn't find anything really obvious with it, put it back together, next stage, fails again. And at that point,
sad tale.
Yeah, I had no clue what the actual fault was. Well, to make a very long story short, I started thinking about it about 2 days after the match, and realized that flange on the top of the mainspring cap was not normal, and the only way that would happen is if that cap was running into the retainer pin that's in the mainspring housing, basically the whole entire thing that keeps all the spring and the cap and everything contained in there. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, well, it really shouldn't be hitting that pin. If it is hitting the pin, that means basically that the mainspring is not under full compression when the hammer's forward.
Okay, the strut is coming off of
the cap,
so it's not being driven forward.
Exactly.
Okay.
So after looking at that and taking some measurements, I realized that the hammer was not actually being driven into the slide. It was actually coming up and coasting to the slide and probably bouncing off the firing pin. Now, the weird thing about this is I had replaced the strut back late last year, probably like fall or early winter of last year, and had probably put through that gun a couple thousand rounds since doing that. The one thing that I didn't do is I put in a EGW long strut, and it said long, so I figured it's long, it's got to be long, it's got to be good.
Longer than normal.
Right, exactly, because it's long. It's like the new and improved. It's got to be better.
Exactly.
So at any rate, but I didn't dress the very bottom of the strut, and the bottom of the strut started chewing into the mainspring housing cap. And
that's the cap titanium?
No, it was steel.
Okay, so it's steel on steel.
Steel on steel.
Okay.
So at any rate, it started basically making effectively this strut shorter because it's going deeper and deeper into the cap, and that's why it started failing. What I later discovered is that the EGW long strut is actually 40 thousandths shorter than an STI titanium strut. So I took the strut out,
didn't you also discover something else about your mainspring housing later? Not the mainspring housing in the gun, but Steve has a spare parts kit.
Oh yeah, so I mentioned before about carrying spare parts. It turns out
you have to remember if the spare parts are of no use if you don't remember which spare parts you have.
Right. So I had. It turns out a spare ready to go, mainspring housing in my parts kit that I used when I was shooting those crappy Wolf primers, which actually now I'm beginning to wonder if those crappy Wolf primers weren't so crappy after all. It actually might have been maybe not driving the hammer into the firing pin or not. But at any rate, I'm just going to write it off as crappy Wolf primers to damn commies. But at any rate, so I had the parts with me to possibly get the gun back up and running, but the heat had me so frazzled at that time that I wasn't actually able to.
Just forgot about that mainspring housing in the parts kit.
Sitting right there, it's red. I mean, how could I miss that? But I did.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I ended up replacing the strut, the EGW long, not so long strut, 40,000 short, with
the Air Bonnies,
with the standard STI titanium strut, and also replaced the mainspring housing cap pin with turns out in this case, a EGW titanium cap pin, so now it's all ultralight again.
Wow.
And went out and initially first put the slide on it and made sure that when the slide is in, fully locked up, that it actually is compressing the hammer against the spring. Went out and shot it yesterday, put 200 rounds through it, no problem whatsoever. So
I'm just going to wait till I get my mags back before I make any determination.
Yeah. Right.
I don't have any mags, so I can't shoot my gun to test to see what's wrong with it. So
unfortunately, in my case, what would have been a pretty decent finish overall, crunching the numbers, I would have finished 5th out of 120. I ended up finishing 14th out of 120. So I was kind of looking forward to possibly finishing the top 10, and I actually was on the pace to do it until things kind of went bad.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the competition, I mean, you faced a lot stiffer competition in limited than I did in single stack. I actually had hopes that if I shot well, I would win the match. And I got beaten by a shooter in my class by 20%, which gives you an idea of just how, let's call it an uneven performance. There were some stages when the gun was running, I was running. There were some stages when neither of us was running very well, and you're never going to perform very well like that. I mean, I usually after a match, especially after a major match, I'll look at my score sheets and kind of think back, how did I do on a stage? And I'll either score that stage as plus, equal, or minus. And typically, like let's say there's 12 stages at this match, I'll have equal on 6 of them, plus on 3, minus on 3, and it all comes back to the average. Well, on this match, I'd say I had maybe 2 or 3 that I would have rated as equal. I mean, it was just so many of them where I had either the mechanical malfunction, a mental malfunction, trigger finger malfunction. It just wasn't really a good match. So, I did have some good stages. As we'll see in the video, I shot pretty well. I thought, couple of second, third place finishes on a couple of stages. So I thought, I was shooting okay, but it just definitely can't overcome the huge problems with the malfunctions and the terror that is instilled in me by plate racks, and we'll get into that as we do the stage breakdown.
Talking about plate racks, they had a very interesting plate rack, which you'll see there's something that we haven't seen before. But the stages are really good. I mean, the stages are actually very fun. Good combination. Yes. The thing that with double tap match we've mentioned before is that it's really all about, or pretty much about speed. But I think there was actually an element in this match that sucked people into this kind of middle area, because you had the close targets, which let's say were out to 7 yards, could be shot point shooting. Then you had the other targets that it might have been the 15 to 20 yards, 18 yards area that did require front sight. And then you had all these other targets which were wide open, that were in the 10 to kind of 14 yard region, which I think a lot of people went into point shooting mode because they see brown and they don't really focus on the center of the target, and they're trying to go fast and they're not using their sights, and they end up dropping points or missing targets. So I think those are the targets that actually sucked a lot of people up, or the ones where they actually had to use the sights and didn't.
There was a stage where we stepped onto a platform activator that started a turn or turning, and I hit the turner but missed the stationary target next to it at, 15 to 20 feet?
Yeah.
And so it was one of those deals where I'm thinking, oh boy, I don't want to miss my shot on that turner.
So you're coming off the paper too
fast.
Yeah,
I just completely blew it, rushing it, when there was no need to rush. I mean, I'd watched 5 or 6 guys shoot it, and I'm standing there telling myself, I don't have to rush. All I have to do is, if I step on the activator at the right moment, it will just appear as I'm transitioning to it. But I'm like, and managed to screw it up anyway. So there's a bunch of stuff like that. And the other thing too is, I think we mentioned earlier when we were talking about the match, that this match usually is done earlier in the spring.
Right.
And this year, and maybe last year as well, it was moved into June.
Actually, last year was in the spring also.
And I felt like I was shooting like I do early in the spring after coming out of hibernation. I don't shoot too much over the winter.
Just much warmer.
Yeah, and then going down there, even though it was June, I felt like it was March. I mean, like it was spring training. Like, just stuff was not happening at the speed I wanted it to, and I wasn't seeing things like I normally do. And I think, obviously the heat and everything, it didn't help any. But yeah, it was just generally feeling kind of out of sorts down there. And again, as we look at the stages, you'll be able to tell which stages were shot Saturday morning and which stages were shot Saturday afternoon, just by whether I'm standing up straight or kind of listing off to the side with my tongue hanging out. But so we'll certainly get into that in later episodes.
I know what you mean, kind of about the feeling like it's the beginning of the year, because in the case of this match, like I said, was really all about speed. But I kind of shot at the same pace that I would have any other given match. I mean, I didn't really, generally speaking, ramp myself up into warp mode or anything like that. I just shot it like it was any other, match, which actually may have been a good thing. And to be honest, my stage times weren't really too far out when everything worked. Where things went horribly sideways the second day, my times were quite a bit slower, about 7 to 8 seconds slower than everybody else, where I should have been. But my times were in the neighborhood. I think I took a second on one stage and a third on another, and I wasn't actually pushing or anything like that on those. It just did what I did. So
yeah, what I discovered after it was announced we were actually in the middle kind of the prize drawing. They announced the single stack results have been posted, and so I go over there and look, and there were 25 shooters in single stack, and I'm thinking I didn't shoot great, but okay, let's see, let's start about shooter in 5th place. 10th place, 15th place. Oh, come on, 20th place. And I started again, 5th place. There's no 1st place? No, 5th place. And there were no scores for me for the match. No scores on any stages.
Tell them why.
And so I went to the Stat Shack where they said, come up here if you've got a question. I went in there and I said, and I had all my score sheets. Of course, at a major match, like level 2 match, you get duplicate score sheets. I've got 12 of them, all of them signed. And I said, I don't have any scores. And the match director kind of went to his computer and he goes, oh, you were DQ'd. and I said, well, then how come I have 12
funny, nobody told me that
score sheets? Yeah. And so they said, leave us your score sheets and get out of here and we'll take care of it. And it became there was kind of a consensus as we sat there waiting that the results were held up for an hour because of me.
Yeah.
And people were saying, I'll give you $10 if you'll be DQ'd. And I said, well, pass the hat. If everybody here will kick in $10, I'll go back to being DQ'd. And I think they actually, I don't know, but I think they actually had to reconstruct my scores from my score sheets. I think they must have, the score, they figured this guy's DQ'd. We don't need the score sheet, and they must have just been tossing them, and by the end of the day, they just didn't have any.
You would think, though, that if you've been DQ'd and they keep on your score sheets come in,
though,
you'd think they'd be like, somebody go out to the squad and get that guy and tell him he can't be shooting.
It was somewhat humorous, and what had happened is I'd had to reshoot a stage, and apparently the score sheet was turned in with a handwritten info on it instead of a sticker, and there was just some misinterpretation of what had happened, and so they had DQ'd me on that basis. Which was inappropriate, but actually, there was an appropriate time on a previous stage, and so it all kind of evened out in the end.
Which we're not going to talk about.
No,
yeah,
much.
Nope.
So there is a kind of an overview of our experience at the Double Tap Championship a couple of weeks ago in Wichita Falls, and the next few episodes, what we're going to do is using match footage. Break down each of the stages, how we approach the stages. Steve was shooting limited, I was shooting single stack, so we'll have very different approaches. We'll show how we shot and then kind of analyze our performances, what went well, what went poorly, what would we do differently. There's some stages that had some interesting little wrinkles in them, and we've touched on elements of it when we were discussing hit factor and target scoring in previous episodes, but you'll get to see it in action.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be kind of fun, and that will really get into some more kind of advanced stuff, more so than this kind of all these intro episodes that we've been doing as we get into kind of how you use your capacity and your expected hit factor and whatnot to break the stage down for the best performance.
But also in terms of, we'll have a lot of information of given an array of targets, there's certain types of targets of why you should shoot them in a certain sequence that you do.
Yep.
Things
Getting
of that.
deep into ports, shooting
or,
on the way
or
in,
not getting
shooting
deep
on the
into
way
ports,
out.
yeah,
There's
or
a lot
how,
of different elements.
yeah,
to
steel
it.
versus paper and stuff like that. So
Yes, steel.
hopefully, after going through the 12 stages of
Steel.
seeing how steel, yeah. Actually, I had fun with the steel. Not so much fun. But at any rate, so hopefully after going through the 12 stages and...
You'll be thoroughly bored. Hopefully you'll still
be thoroughly
with us.
informed.
Yeah. Come back in 3 weeks. We'll be starting on a different topic. So anyway, thanks for viewing. And if you want to contact us, you can send us an email at powerfactorshow@gmail.com or the website
at powerfactorshow.com.
Until next time, I'm
I'm
Rick.
Blondie.
Oh yeah, I'm Tuco.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Bye.
Okay, so we also have a contest to announce. Safariland has given us a certificate to give away to one lucky viewer. Certificate's right here. We're going to see how good our producer is. Right? It's right here.
Oh yeah.
Now we're going to see how really good he is. Ready? Track that look. Okay. So the way you can enter the contest is that between this episode and the end of July, which I believe is July 31st, according to my calendar. How about your calendar?
Could be.
Maybe.
I don't have my phone.
Right, yeah. So if you go to our Facebook page at Facebook at Power Factor Show, or you can also get there.
Somebody's indicating you screwed it up.
Or you can get there. Well, I know the easy way to get there is to go to the website powerfactorshow.com and click the Facebook link there. That'll work.
That's the easy way.
Yeah, that's the easiest way.
Yeah, so do that.
Yeah. So if you go to that and like us, or if you go to iTunes and leave us a positive review there, you'll get in for the drawing also. We're going to basically take everybody who has already gone to Facebook and liked us and everybody else who has already gone to iTunes and leave us a review. You're automatically will be entered, so you're not going to be excluded or anything like that.
So anybody who's ever liked us up through the end of July is eligible.
I don't like you.
Well, I'm just saying.
I'm not eligible.
I'm just saying. Every person who's liked us is eligible.
Right.
As long as they get in before the end of July.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So vote early and vote often.
And, well, I don't know about vote often. Yeah, right.
I never
Chicago
never
politics,
having been
right.
to Facebook.
Right, yeah, and neither have I, as you can tell, because apparently I blew the...
That the indication is that you blew the Addy.
Which actually I think is a badge of honor, since I've never been there.
Right.
So at any rate, so it'll be
Just the
a
facts.
certificate for your choice of holster, whatever you want.
And if you can name the movie reference...
to
obscures what you said, badge of honor, and I said just the facts.
Oh, okay.
So name that movie, and maybe we'll give you an extra entry into the drawing
like a mag pouch or something.
as a special bonus from Rick. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it. Thanks. Get your stuff in.